It was the middle of a scorching summer afternoon when the black SUV pulled into the dusty village road. Everyone turned their heads. Cars like that didn't come here often. The air smelled of heat, sweat, and earth. The sound of chickens scratching the dirt mixed with the faint hum of the SUV's engine before it rolled to a stop in front of a small, crumbling mud house. Inside the car, 17-year-old Mahira sat silently, her hands clenched in her lap. The air conditioning blasted cold air on her, but she still felt suffocated. Her dark eyes stared out of the window, but she avoided looking at the curious faces outside. She knew what they were thinking. She knew what they would say. She had heard it all before. Mahira was large, not just in the way people say, chubby, or big-boned, but in a way that made strangers point and laugh when they thought she wasn't looking. Years of emotional eating, loneliness, and neglect had left her body heavy and slow. And in her wealthy father's household, where image was everything, that was the ultimate sin. Her father had been a man obsessed with status, reputation, and appearances. Her mother, fragile and quiet, had died when Mahira was young, leaving her in the care of servants who were instructed to feed her but never to coddle her. In a house filled with silk curtains, crystal chandeliers, and imported perfumes, Mahira grew up lonely, unhugged, and unwanted. Last week, her father had called her into his office. He didn't even look up from his paperwork when he said, "You've become an embarrassment to the family. I've decided to send you somewhere you can learn discipline. Somewhere you'll stop ruining my image." Mahira's throat had tightened. "Where?" she whispered. He finally looked at her, his eyes cold and calculating. "To a farmer in the countryside. He's agreed to take you in. You'll work for him. Consider it punishment." Punishment. That word had sliced through her like a blade. And now, here she was, sitting in the back seat of a car that carried her away from the only home she had ever known, a home that had never felt like hers, toward a fate she couldn't even imagine. The driver stepped out and opened her door. The heat slammed into her like a wall, making her dizzy. She stepped onto the dry, cracked ground, clutching her small duffel bag, the only bag she had been allowed to bring. A tall man stood in front of the house. His skin was darkened from years under the sun, his hair streaked with gray. His eyes, sharp and unreadable, scanned her from head to toe. "This is her," the driver said flatly. "From the city. The agreement's been made." The man gave a short nod. "Name?" "Mahira," she mumbled, her eyes fixed on the ground. He turned to the driver. "I'll take it from here." "It." "Not her." "It." The driver handed him an envelope, probably money, then got back into the car. Within seconds, the SUV disappeared in a cloud of dust, leaving Mahira standing there with this stranger. "Follow me," the man said. His voice was deep, firm, almost commanding. Mahira followed, struggling to keep up as he walked briskly toward the fields behind the house. She could feel the stares of villagers on her back, their whispers swirling in the air. She knew they were talking about her size, her awkwardness, her city clothes that already looked wrong in this place. The man stopped in front of a small shed. "You'll stay here," he said, opening the door to reveal a simple cot, a wooden table, and a jug of water. "You'll work in the fields in the morning and help with the animals in the evening. Food is earned, not given." "Understood." She nodded silently. He turned to leave but paused. "My name is Zamir. You'll do as I say." And just like that, he walked away, leaving her alone. In the small shed, the first night was unbearable. The heat clung to her skin, and mosquitoes whined in her ears. She cried quietly into her pillow, her stomach empty because she hadn't been able to finish the coarse bread and watery lentils she'd been given. She thought of her soft bed in the city, the air conditioning, the fridge full of food. She thought of her father's face, not with longing, but with a deep ache of rejection. The next morning, Zamir woke her at dawn. "Get up. Work starts now." She stumbled after him into the fields, the earth damp from overnight watering. He handed her a hoe. "Weed this row." She bent over and began working, but within minutes her back ached, her arms burned, and sweat dripped into her eyes. Her breathing grew heavy, and she had to stop, leaning on the hoe for support. "Keep going," Zamir said without pity. "You'll get used to it." Days turned into weeks. The work was exhausting. Digging, planting, feeding chickens, carrying buckets of water. Her muscles screamed in protest, her skin darkened under the relentless sun, and her hands grew rough and calloused. She often collapsed into bed at night too tired to cry. But slowly, something began to change. Her body, though still heavy, started to feel stronger. She could work longer without resting. Her breath came easier. Her clothes hung looser. One evening, as she sat outside watching the sunset, Zamir came and sat beside her. It startled her. He had never sought her company before. "You're improving," he said simply. She glanced at him, unsure if it was a compliment. "I guess," she murmured. "You think I'm a poor farmer, don't you?" His voice held a strange tone, part amusement, part challenge. She blinked. "Aren't you?" A small smile tugged at his lips. "I own over 2,000 acres in this district. Wheat, cotton, mango orchards. But land means nothing without the right people to work it. That's why I test those who come here. Some people have money but no strength. Others have strength but no discipline. You had neither. She flushed, stung by his bluntness. But, he continued, you're learning. And that's more than most. In the months that followed, Mahira began to see a side of Zamir she hadn't noticed before. He treated his workers fairly, never cheating them of their wages. He provided food and education for their children. And though he was strict, he never asked anyone to do work he wouldn't do himself. One rainy afternoon, Mahira slipped in the mud while carrying a heavy basket. She sat there, tears mixing with the rain, ready to give up. Zamir appeared beside her, kneeling in the mud. "Look at me," he said. She lifted her eyes reluctantly. "You think your weight is your prison," he said quietly. "But it's not. Your mind is. And the only way out is to stop believing you're worthless." Those words lodged deep inside her. She began to push herself harder. Not to lose weight for her father, but to prove to herself she was capable. She learned to milk cows, harvest crops, and even drive the old tractor. Her laughter, once rare, became more frequent. She formed friendships with the other workers, sharing meals and stories under the shade of the banyan tree. A year later, when her father arrived unannounced, he barely recognized her. She stood tall, her skin glowing with health, her eyes steady. "I've come to take you back," he said stiffly. "You've improved." Mahira looked at him for a long moment, then shook her head. "No, I'm staying." His face hardened. "You're my daughter. I'm also my own person," she interrupted. "And for the first time, I'm proud of who I am." He left in silence, his pride wounded. That evening, Zamir found her in the fields. "You made your choice," he said. She smiled. "I did. And it's mine." In the years that followed, Mahira became an integral part of running the estate. She introduced new farming techniques she'd read about, managed workers with kindness and firmness, and even started a small side business selling handmade products from the village. The girl who had once been sent away as punishment had become a leader, a provider, a woman respected not for her appearance, but for her heart and strength. And every time she looked out at the endless fields swaying under the sun, she felt a quiet gratitude for the punishment that had turned out to be a gift, and for the man who had seen past her weight to the person she could become. Because sometimes, the place where you are thrown away is the place where you are truly found.